Welcome everybody to the Superbet Chess Classic. It is a long game over-the-board tournament being held in a hotel in Bucharest, Romania. Many of the world's top 10 players participating, as well as two strong Romanian local grandmasters. Every day I take you through all of the games, and today is no different. Then I will update you on the standings. Today is called Picking on the Locals because, well, you'll find out. And then, obviously, we'll just summarize everything afterward. That's really the best introduction I can give you. I hope you guys are all doing great. Game number one, Giri versus Wesley. So, begins with e4. We have e5, knight f3, knight c6. And here, Giri, rather than the Italian, decides to go for the Spanish, Ruy Lopez. We have knight f6, offering a Berlin. Now, here, if you don't want to go for the Berlin, you will play d3. This is quite literally known as the anti-Berlin. But we have castles, knight e4, and now we either have the main line nowadays with d4, or there is rook e1, which ultimately leads to a total symmetry. So we have this, and now knight d6, takes. The move knight f5 was not a takes, but we'll just call it a takes anyway. And so this is the Berlin endgame. Popularized by Vladimir Kramnik versus Garry Kasparov in their World Championship match in the year 2000. If you have been following any of my videos, you know about the Berlin, not even the forced draw, just the fact that the endgame is very imbalanced. But equal, it's very equal. So we have h3. Bishop e7, we have rook d1 check, and here black, rather than moving something in front of the king, moves the king to e8, because actually the king is completely safe in the center, because white's own pawn is blocking forward movement. Knight c3 is repelled by this pawn, so this rook is never going to go in by itself. So g4. Knight h4 by Wesley, and we have takes, knight c3. And here, a line which is very, very common when white expands with these pawns in the Berlin, Wesley plays h5. Very useful pawn break, very difficult to defend as well. Giri plays g5. This is an interesting move. Basically, the point is that if you were to take on h3, this looks nice. You cannot get out because I've boxed you in with my bishop. Here, I would play the move rook d4, and you would lose the bishop. Your bishop is actually completely stuck because, again, you can block, but then I have that, and that's very tragic. You take, I take, I'm up a bishop. Well, actually, technically, I'm up a knight. And I will probably win the game, which is why Wesley did not blunder that and instead played this move. Nice pawn break, spotting this, not that, but this, going for his bishop, and he would just take back. And so we had pawn takes, knight e4, which targets both of the pawns, guarding one, attacking the other. Wesley takes like this. We have another trade, king e7, with the intention to move the bishop and probably bring the second rook into the game, and the players shuffled their pieces and made a draw. And that's a very fitting result. I mean, first of all, it was kind of a draw, like once the Berlin happened and once the Berlin was accepted. But if we're being honest, it was probably already a draw in this position. So we go to game number two. Teimour Radjabov versus Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. You know what you're getting with Maxime. You're getting a Grunfeld defense. It's crazy because you know what you're getting, like every single time. I mean, imagine you were playing against somebody and you knew what they were going to play 100% of the time. Like 99% of the time you knew what they were going to play. You would think that you'd be able to win, but if they're super well prepared, it's not, you can't. You can't. I mean, like, there's nothing you can do. So we get a main line. And it's completely up to Teimour to decide how to do this. Is he going to play bishop e3? Is he going to play rook b1? He goes rook b1. And then we have bishop e2 and cd4. We saw a game earlier in the tournament with queen a5, queen a2 played. But in this game, we have this. Oh, wow. We have the exact same thing. And the truth is that it's kind of like difficult for black to do much of anything here. If black plays really solidly with b6 and castles and bishop b7, the bishop's laser beam the center, but black doesn't have a tremendous amount of activity. White can just advance forward. So oftentimes what black will do is black will go win a pawn and say, haha, I'm up a pawn, not like out loud, then you'll get in trouble. And then we have rook takes b7. We actually have seen this played already. I believe Giri MVL was the exact same game. Do you guys remember that? No, me neither. Bishop f3, e5, and now we have a forced sequence of moves. We have rook e7, rook d8, e6, and a line which, if you've been following any of my recaps, you know that this has been played before. Teimour sacrifices his queen to deliver perpetual check by playing this move rook to d7, so the rook cannot take the bishop. It's check, no one can get in the way, and they just shuffled back and forth. Well, this game, there is a bit of an excuse. People were saying on the broadcast that Teimour was not feeling well. And when you, in the times of COVID, when you say you're not feeling well, they lock you in a room. Okay, I mean it's a really bad time to say you're not feeling well. So I hope Teimour feels better. Hopefully it's not COVID, and hopefully it's nothing. Frankly, hopefully it's nothing. And you know what? I'm gonna let Teimour off the hook. That's a draw. Levon versus Fabiano. We have a Queen's Gambit, and we have a Queen's Gambit accepted. Now, the most critical move is e4, which is, of course, not played in the game. Instead, we have e3. And e3, basically, all of Black's play revolves around the move c5. Can Black play c5? Can Black trade this off? Usually, you get e6, a6, and b5. I can almost guarantee you that every single one of those moves is going to happen in this game. Okay, so far, so good. Okay, so far so good. And here, Levon plays an interesting move. He actually gets confrontational quickly. Normally, that's not the way you play this. Normally, white will play queen e2, rook d1, b3, bishop b2, even taking on c5, and going for endgames where, you know, Black has lost the right to castle. We saw Magnus win a very nice game versus Wesley. So, in the most recently concluded, what was it called? FTX Crypto Cup? I don't remember. But that was a very nice game that he won. But we have knight e5, and so Fabiano's kind of on his own. I mean, on the surface, it looks very easy. You trade everything, yay, and you go here and you attack the pawn. It's actually not so simple. I go f4, and it's very clear your pieces just suck. I mean, they are really bad. You got an apartment, and then, you know, they built a massive condominium right next to your apartment building. It's time to sue the city, or the people who built it. I'm not speaking from experience. Although living from a New Yorker, that's very possible. So instead we get queen c7, and some moves later, the prophecy fulfills itself, and we have this move b5. Now this position on a surface does look pretty good, because after knight takes f6 check, if Fabiano plays gf6, he would lose a rook. But the thing is, he's 28-20, so he does this. And even though he's lacking just a little bit behind in development, it's not so simple for white to do anything. e4 is played, Levon goes e5, bishop e7, and a4, and he's trying to, like, poke at Fabi's structure, but just castles. And the thing is, like, once Fabi gets fully developed, there's not a whole lot you can target. Now, it was still a complex game. We got rook to a3. We have a rook lift, so we're looking to get something here. Rook drops back to b6. This is a deep move. The point of this move is to move the queen forward in anticipation of the attack, and then play rook g6, which is exactly what happened. Look at that. That's very nice. Like, this is not a 20-move repetition. Rook back, queen up. Like, this is deep chess. This is very nice. And so here this move bishop c3 gets played. Apparently the move rook c3 was also possible, with the intention to play bishop e3 and f4, I believe. That was a very interesting idea as well, to play like that. Bishop e3 to target the weak pawn, and then play f4 and f5. But he chooses the far more human approach. Queen goes back to c7, and now rook g3. Point is that if you trade, and then maybe play queen g4, you've got some long-term prospects to play, like h4, h5, maybe f4, f5. This bishop is very nice. This bishop really is not that fantastic. So Fabiano finds a very nice idea. Again, we take top-level chess for granted sometimes, c4. Pushing a pawn forward, not because he thinks that it's somehow going to bribe the bishop to get out of the way and then make it all the way to become a queen. It's because of this move. Like, in chess, like, chess is a simple game sometimes. Me have bad bishop. He have good bishop. Me trade bad bishop for he good bishop. Me happy. See? Even if it might come at what looks like the cost of one pawn, because it's not so clear. Because takes, and rook b8. And no one's going to actually protect us. Like, okay, rook b1 is the most depressing thing I've ever seen. And black is completely fine. Even though he's down a pawn, black has some dynamic compensation in that position. Instead, we got an explosion of pawns, and this is just drawn. These pawns are god-awful, but you're not going to lose them, and so the players just literally did this. I mean, you know, you would think that rather than playing on, shuffling back and forth like this is something you would do online. Nah, they just very shamelessly just over the board shuffling. Like, not even the rooks. Like, why didn't he move a rook? Anyway, that's a draw, more or less fighting. And now we move on to why this video is called what it's called, picking on the locals. It's because these grandmasters just won't leave these Romanians alone. 3 days in a row now, the poor Romanians have had to play and suffer for, like, you know, actual chess games. And all the other super GMs just make draws. And we'll talk about this a little bit more later. You know, that game that we just saw, that was a decent game. And it was tough, it was complex. But, like, what are we looking at here? I mean, there has been like 2 decisive results out of the first 13 games that I've shown you, right? I mean, come on. How can you market this? I don't know how to make it better. Maybe that's just chess at classical. It's not a knock on any of the players. The truth is that in long game format, it's difficult. But we'll talk about it a little bit later. I'll give you my full thoughts. D4, knight f6, c4, e6, and we have a Catalan. Okay, a Catalan. White's whole point is that he'll play bishop g2 and have long-range play. Yesterday, Giri Radjabov ended in a draw in the Catalan. Today, Schach doesn't go for bishop b4. He plays what's known as the sharp variation, knight c6. Not named after anybody named Sharp. It's a sharp variation because it's an adjective. Bishop b4 check. And the whole point of knight c6 is that in the future, black will play rook to b8, clearing up that square, right, for the rook, and then playing b5, and just hanging on to this pawn. And also that gets out of the way of the bishop. If you render this bishop useless, the entire Catalan makes absolutely 0 sense. So, bishop d2, knight d5. Wow. Defending his bishop. It's moving a second time with this knight. e4 looks like a very good move here, except for the fact that it's idiotic, because I just take with check, you take, and then I bring my new piece to d4, excuse me, b4, and maybe to d3. Or I can play knight b6, and now I'm attacking your queen and guarding my pawn, and this is still under attack, so you suck. Which is why we get bishop takes b4, and everything that I promised, and queen b5. You might laugh at this move and say, well, here's the thing, he really doesn't want him to go b5. That's actually the best move. Queen b5 is the best move to go here, because again, let's say you run away this way, well then black just plays b5. Like, you're never winning your pawn back. If you don't win your pawn back, the Catalan makes no sense. I mean, you're just down a pawn, and your bishop has no target, right? So, queen b5 and queen c4, even at the cost of wasting some tempi, right? And so what happens is we get this position, and e4 now, and knight a5. So I'm attacking your knight, you're attacking this, and now knight takes c7. The queen's hanging 2 different ways. The knight is hanging, the knight's targeted, the bishop is hanging. So we have takes, and 6 pawns aside, knight and bishop, 2 rooks. b3 kicks out the knight, knight transfers to the middle. Only Bogdan Diak is playing this position for a win. So his Catalan has been successful. He is the only one targeting a central weakness. This is not really a weakness. Oh, I mean, it's targetable. But rook c7, rook a7, bishop d5. Like, black has 3 weaknesses, white has 1. So we have bishop b7, passive defense. Knight jumps into c6, forcing black into this mildly uncomfortable exchange. And then knight b5 takes, and black wins this pawn back on d4. So white is forever better here. Why is white forever better? White is forever better because he has the bishop versus the knight endgame. Knights are not particularly mobile. They're very good in close positions. They're good if you can plant them on a square and keep them there forever, which black literally cannot do any of those things right now. And if anybody has any targets, it's white. It's white who's going to maybe trade 1 rook, which is a good golden rule in endgames. So he plays h3, and Schach plays g5. The point of g5 is to maybe in the future lock this knight in and also just get your king out, maybe get out of the pin, slowly advance. Rook d1 and the knight comes back to e5. Rook d5. Kind of a trick. If you take my bishop, I take your weak pawn with check, then I take this. So we obviously don't get that. Now you cannot have my bishop for the knight. And as this game was progressing, it was Diak who was trying to make progress. He advanced on the queen side. He advanced twice on the queen side, and then ultimately a few moves later made a trade over there, creating a one-on-one. And if he can win that pawn, he would have success. The problem is that by using pawn forward movement, bringing the king, and remember I said the knight needs to live on a square? It's living on that square right now. The only way Diak is ever going to get rid of that knight is to play the move f4. f4 is far too risky. This transformation of structure is garbage for white. This pawn just becomes a target. Actually, you just have 2 weaknesses now. Your rook is hanging in this, and if this, I have knight f4 is going to become a really big problem. Like fe6, rook d4, I mean, I don't know, rook c3, king f5. I mean, I will find a way to win this pawn, or that pawn. So, Diak never really does much, and I mean, Schach just keeps maneuvering his knight. Rook b4 is played, bishop c4, f6, and let me tell you something, when a light squared bishop stands on the board and 4 dark squared pawns, you're never going to win any of those pawns. And he didn't, and so they shuffled pieces a few moves later. Which takes me to the final game of the day. The game between Lupulescu and Anish Giri. This was also a very long game. Shahryar tried to win that game for some time. I mean, tried to win is a stretch. He tried to play that game. He was playing it for some time. So here we go. We have c4, e5, and we have a 4 knights English with e3. This is very, very popular. This is in my repertoire, as well as g3. This is also what I play with black. So I love seeing what these guys bring to the table. If you skipped ahead to see this game, go rewatch my videos so I can get some more mid-roll ads. And if you haven't skipped because you're a good viewer, you know that at any moment I can give you some funny joke. Also, you take pride in watching every minute. I appreciate you very much. Thank you, and let's have a great game. Bishop b4. Queen c2. And here the main line used to be castles with knight d5, but nowadays people realize they can volunteer this bishop for capture and play queen e7, and white's position is pretty difficult to prove an advantage. I'm not saying white is worse. If white was worse on move 6, this would be guess the elo. d4, which is one of the moves, knight e4, and black is trying to punish white for getting a little too aggressive with the queen here. Queen attacks the knight, pawn takes pawn is a nice move, guarding. All of this has been seen before. Here I am familiar with the move knight to c5, which attacks the queen. I'm familiar with the move short castle. I'm familiar with the move d6, trying to develop a bishop. Giri plays knight c5, queen d1, takes, and castles. And actually this, as far as I remember, is still in my notes. I know that this position is possible. Basically what black is saying is, I am going to play b6 and bishop b7, have a very powerful bishop. My knight is really sexy on c5, although I'm not really into stuff like that. d6, I will bring my rooks to the middle. Maybe in the future I'll move my f-pawn forward. My position's really solid. I don't have any weaknesses. You're not going to get to this anytime soon. What white is saying is, haha, bishop pair, go brrr. That's basically it. White is like, I have the 2 bishops, I'm happy, you suck. So both players begin developing. And here there's, you can play bishop f3, which is actually a move that I like. That can lead to very boring positions like this, just bishop versus knight, let the best player win, very equal, very dry. But there's also this way, f3. And the point of f3 is that you would like to blunt this bishop, and then maybe play e4 in the future. b3, e4, and get this big center mass. a5 and f5. So as promised, I am providing you all of the plans of the position. Black has a nice square for this knight. You cannot really play a3 and b4 because you will just very confidently blunder a rook, so don't do that. Rook d1, d6. The other thing about black's position is the majority of your pawns should be on dark squares. Why? Because you like chocolate. And also because this bishop on d2, which will go to c3 in a moment, it's a dark square bishop, and you can really suppress its movement by putting all your pawns on dark squares. Also, you don't have a dark squared bishop. So b3, rook f2, and this game turns into Anish Giri trying to push the issue. Anish is far more active. This bishop pair is definitely not going brrr. We have bishop d3, queen f7, and Anish has arrived on the king side. He is ready. He's getting out of his jet on the tarmac, and he is ready to put on his Gucci shades and go to the club. Bishop to e1, I don't really even know what white is doing here. And here Anish plays a very sexy move. He plays bishop to e4. That is a nice move. Except for the fact that it's bad. Apparently Anish had to put the knight on e4. The point is that if you take the knight, which is horrible, you now have a bishop hanging and the bishop cannot stay guarding this rook. And basically what will happen is I will take, and this bishop comes alive. As you know, bishops are preferred, especially of opposite color, in attacking positions. So this bishop stands on b7, sees g2, and nobody can get in its way. But by going bishop e4, white has this move bishop b1, and he doesn't have to do anything, and he just looks at you and goes, and you know, bishop g3, and now you kind of have to take. And all of a sudden, just like the other game, we got bishop versus knight. Now here we got a lot of the heavy pieces. I'm not insulting their weight. Knights and rooks and queens are heavy pieces. And Anish takes on g3. So here we have queen d5 check in between move. King moves out of the way and hg3. Now again, it looks like you can go here. And you can. And you are up a pawn. The problem is, despite winning a pawn, white has something here known as compensation. And that is e4. And there is a problem here. e4. The problem is you are very inactive with these pieces. These pieces have very poor what we call coordination in chess, whereas white's pieces are very well coordinated on the e-file, crisscross applesauce over here. Queen f3 looks like a horrible blunder by Lupulescu. Looks like he just blundered this pawn. You can't take. Now you're down 2 pawns. You can maybe do this. Maybe, right? Because if queen takes queen, back rank mate. If this, rook e2, and still some back rank. No. No, you cannot take on f5, not because of queen g2, that would be a horrible blunder, but because of rook g2. And yes, you can take the rook, but then I take, and you're dead. It's mate in 11. I'm not gonna show it. Okay, I will. Check, here, check, here, check, here, check, here, check. You can't block because takes, but if you go here, it's mate. So you gotta do this. Now check, king g1, rook e1, king h2, and rook f1, and it's paralysis, and then you mate in a couple of moves. Anyway, queen f7. That was like the most exciting thing I showed you this recap, forced mate in 11. Rook g8, pawn takes f5, and all of a sudden, who the hell is trying to beat who? I'm sorry. Whoa. Anish plays queen c6 in this position, which looks like a good move. It covers e8. I mean, again, rook e8 looks great, except for the fact that it hangs mate in 1, which is why Anish played queen c6. Now we have rook f2, queen c5, and rook e7. And rook e7 is a really annoying move for black, because number one, it threatens to take this pawn. Number two, it continuously has this lurking threat of rook e8 coming. And number three, f6 is on the way. And if you can ever play f6 takes and get mated, that would be very impressive. So here, Anish is lost. Yeah, he's losing. He plays queen d4, and now rook e8. You say, why did he allow that? I mean, why didn't you just go back here and stop that? It's so easy. f6. You can't stop all the threats. Like rook e7, and there's 3 threats, and you can't stop them all. So queen d4, rook takes, and now Anish just tries to go for a perpetual check. He sacrifices the rook looking for a draw, but he doesn't have it. The king just runs away and blocked by the rook, and okay, you can keep giving checks, but I'll bring back my rook, and you're gonna win up a rook. And from a very nice attacking position, like after queen h5, I mean, it looked like all the momentum was on Anish's side. I mean, look at this position. Beautiful position. And the wrong piece to the wrong square. Again, if knight e4 had been played in, like, let's say the same idea, just like we saw in the game, this loses because black transfers the knight. You see, the knight is standing very pretty on c5, you know, but it's kind of like having a bazooka, like, propped up on your wall in gold. But then using it is very different. I'm not advocating to go get a gold-plated bazooka or use it. This isn't Grand Theft Auto. But I gotta make these recaps more exciting with my analogies, right? So I know you guys live for them. So knight g5, and now you have the bazooka. You know, you use the cheat code, and yeah, this is a very big problem for white. So that's the difference between which piece you had put on e4. And again, friendly reminder, just I know many of you who watch this don't think this, but some people do. They think that when I cover these recaps and I show the right move, I'm somehow like having an internal ego battle that I'm better than these players and I would find all these moves. No. If you think that, don't be a clown. That's not the point of this. I'm showing you what could have happened, and I'm showing you what did happen. That's it. That's all I'm here for. 5 games, 20 minutes. Name another content creator giving you that sort of stuff. So, at the end of the 3rd round, ladies and gentlemen, this is what the standings look like. The Romanians kicking some butt. We got a big tie of 2s, 1.5s. 1.5 is the biggest one, and 1-pointers. To be honest, the standings don't really matter because it's round 3, and there's a lot of rounds to go. And in classical tournaments, it's very, very common that it's just very tight until, like, you know, the final 3-4 rounds. And that really brings me to my final, you know, takeaway from what I've seen so far. I'm not really reassured about the future of classical chess on a marketability standpoint, folks. I'm really not. We've been blessed. We've been blessed the past year of all these top online events, massive prize funds, folks on camera, shirtless incidents, emotion, you know, crazy blunders and everything. Now, at the end of the day, the highest quality chess is what's in front of you. Not this. Well, yeah, I mean, even this. It's a draw. It's like one wrinkle, one very, very slight wrinkle. Maybe the person hasn't prepared it, and even if they have, maybe they can adapt to it. How many people are watching this thing live? Less than 10,000? I mean, 6, 5, 6, I don't know. How many people are watching the recaps? A whole lot more. How many people watch these online rapid things? Hundreds of thousands. I mean, collectively. Like, anytime live, there's multiple channels. Everybody's... So... I don't know, just food for thought. You're more than welcome to discuss it in the comments. I've been a little bit dejected watching this. It's kind of just becoming a little bit funny to me how quickly folks can draw. But what to do? You know what to do. Maybe if I understood chess at this level, I would have become a grandmaster, but I am happy with the I in front of my title. I can make these recaps for you. You enjoy them. Am I unbuttoned? No, I'm buttoned. Folks, take care. I will see you for round number 4. Get out of here.